The K-Jazz Show, Sundays on Kofifi FM 97.2.
There are voices that entertain us, and then there are voices that stay long with us after the final note has faded. And our guest this week is a master storyteller whose remarkable baritone has traveled the world's greatest concert halls, jazz festivals, and weaves together jazz, soul, African rhythm, funk, and deeply human stories with grace, elegance, and purpose. He built a career defined not only by the extraordinary musicianship, but by authenticity, conviction, and timeless artistry. And of course, as Johannesburg prepares to welcome him once again for the 2026 Sterreback Joy of Jazz Festival, it is an honor, to spend a little time with one of contemporary jazz's most compelling voices. Please welcome to the K-Jazz Show, the incomparable Ola Onabulé.
Tender words, true to false, come from lips that betray. Waiting where dreams sleep, beaten down, dead and pulse from a canny embrace. Waiting where defeat lands, wide night fills dark space, right voice, wrong place, where silence wake up. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Pleasure is all ours. And since this is your first time on the show, let's go to the beginning. The journey begins. And I always say every remarkable artist, Ola, has a beginning. Take us back to your childhood. And what were those sounds, the people, and the memories that quietly planted, the seeds of the musician that you've become today?
Well, I grew up in a part of London called Islington, my childhood. Two Nigerian students who were here, to study, get their qualifications. And so because they were students and they didn't have a lot of money, we all lived in a bedsit. So it's one room with everything, all their worldly possessions, including me, crammed into the middle of the room. And it just so happens that my bed was placed in front of the record player. The radio player and the record player. It was one big unit back in the day. And my father loved music. So before he got, he would get ready in the morning, to go to work or to go to his studies. And he would turn the radio on. So my head was positioned in between the two speakers. I had no choice but to absorb the music. And the music of the day was a mixture. There was a lot of Nat King Cole. There was a lot of Frank Sinatra, there was a lot of the Beatles, very melody rich, very diverse, very eclectic tastes. And that was the stuff that seeped into my subconscious as a young child. And I carried that with me until we all went back to Nigeria when I was age 7, and then absorbed a whole other sensibility of what music could be in very formative years. So I was incredibly lucky to have such rich diversity.
And staying with both, these two heritage, both, Nigerian and British upbringing, you've just mentioned that those are two incredible, rich cultural landscapes. And I want us to talk about, how those identities, found their way into the music, the voice and the stories maybe that you choose to tell.
Well, when I finally got round to, fashioning myself into a musician of sorts, I did what every young artist does, which is you copy your heroes. So I desperately wanted to sound like Stevie Wonder. I wanted to sound like Donny Hathaway. I wanted to sound like Nat King Cole. I found a way on my first album of merging something in between those guys, maybe a little bit of Marvin Gaye in there. But then, by the time I'd gotten that out of my system at the end of my first recording. It's like it sounds like that sounds like a purging of all the demons that have possessed you up till that point. Once I got that out of my system, I started to think, what now? Who am I really? I'd spent 7 years first in Britain, and then 10 years, almost 11 in Nigeria, and then came back to Britain to study as a lawyer, which is what I was sent back to do before I got distracted by music. Who am I? What am I? Which of this is the real thing? And I thought, well, to just make room for just one side of the story would be dishonest. I thought I have to explore what is the intersection between what it means to be an African, what it means to be an African partly raised abroad, to have the ability to fit into either culture and yet be an outsider looking in at all times, and I thought that there was something of worth in that complexity, and so that's what I've been trying to do really ever since.
Pointless is the point of it all, to hold you down where you fall on the fragments of a dream you saw come true, but wasn't meant for you. Pointless, those shattered fingers of blame. You were never in their game, like the echo of a lie you tell yourself when no one's there to hear. I am pointless, naked in London rain, raised by betrayal's pain. Watch the children come and rolling down degradation's drain, gouged out of hollow frames. All too soon they'll come to see hopes. Pointless is the point of it all, to hold you down where you fall on the fragments of a dream you saw come true, but wasn't meant for you. Pointless, those shattered fingers of blame. You were never in their game, like the echo of a lie you tell yourself when no one's there to hear. I am pointless.
People often speak about, your remarkable 3.5 octave baritone. But beyond singing, the technique, in fact, there's tremendous emotional honesty, Ola, in your music. So when you sing, what matters most to you? Perfect notes or just truthful storytelling?
Oh, truthful storytelling. It's the vehicle that I think all the other technicalities can ride on. But, music has a very simple purpose. It comes from very simple origins, especially for Africans. It's, the invocation of the ancestors, of the spirits, of the spirit world, of great meaning, usually only employed at powerful ceremonies, marriages, births, deaths, the declaration of war, the cessation of war, etc., etc., etc. So I try to make sure that I'm honoring that tradition long before I get caught up in the technicalities of what I'm about to do, because that's the thing that will connect to people. People want to hear, if you're talking about love, then they want to feel the love. They don't want to analyze the love. If you're talking about loss, they want to feel the loss in your voice. They don't want to, go away with a notebook and say, oh, at that point he sang that, and so, and so on and so forth. So that's what I tried to do.
I love how you just walked into the next conversation or the next question, because my next thing was, many of your songs, having listened to quite a bit, wrestle with justice, identity, freedom, humanity, These are some of the themes that are explored in the music. Has this kind of music maybe been in your preferred language, to ask the difficult questions about the world?
I think it's a factor of the era in which I absorbed music. It just happened to be that singer-songwriter, talk about the things that are happening, all the kind of Curtis Mayfield, Stevie Wonder, Gil Scott-Heron. There were a lot of kind of poets masquerading as musicians. There were people who wanted to encourage people to not give up hope and fight the good fight and help their brother man and believe that, peace can be everlasting and all those sorts of things. So they were just there in my subconscious. When I came to writing songs, I felt a lot less fulfillment in writing something that was just throwaway. I felt that to be in a position where you stand on a stage and there, I don't know, a few hundred, a few thousand, whatever number it is, people all looking up at you, waiting to hear what you're going to say. You might as well say something worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Stunning Heart to Heart this Sunday with Ola Onabulé on the KJazz Show. Of course, we are in his company. He is one of the musicians who will be gracing the stage at this year's Sterrenbank Joy of Jazz Festival 2026. And of course, later in the conversation, we will let you know as to how you can join us, for this 2-day extravaganza here in the city. Now, Ola, the music, your music sits comfortably, between jazz, soul, African music, we mentioned earlier, funk and contemporary songwriting without ever sounding either confused or compromised. How did you discover that this was your authentic musical language? Yeah, rather than trying to fit. And I know you kind of addressed it a bit earlier on, but let's break it down. The genre, would you define it, or would just music?
I would say it's just music, essentially, but I'm also aware that it's not hard rock, it's not it's not death metal, it's not ska, it's not reggae, so I accept that it is clearly identifiably African, but then that's easy to do because even African American music, the blues is rooted in African tonalities. So that's an easy combination to make. And then the funk is just an homage to the music that I heard once again in my teenage years. It was everywhere. I like a good, strong, powerful, steady beat that lands on the one, and then we all, take it from there. And so, when I'm writing, I tend to focus on a story that I want to tell. When I start to sing it, I find that I fall into habits, and those habits are the things that are part of my subconscious, they're part of the unthinking part of my soul. It's just the feelingful part, and it always ends up sounding somewhat African, somewhat jazzy, and somewhat, funky.
Surrender to dawns as it happens, silver lining songs. Not when grief molds your heart, abandons you on the path to where that faith you lost was. Be strong, pick your heart up, survive. Lucky alone, but alive. Though all those you live for stood no chance past that door. Luck sure ain't what it once was. I died to undream my reality and wake running free. I'd kill for unfettered humanity, murdering sin that conspired to break me. Don't send me all your thoughts and prayers. If they make it, there'll be no use here. Too late has come too soon. Now I'm just an exit wound of the what we are. Vulnerable, yet the sum of all fears. Tolerable as long as nowhere near. No emergency room, this side of the neighborhood. Someday, what we were will return. Reclaim us from apathy's concern. Shades of lighter heartaches, naivete to awake on a battlefield. New blood, be a still the old status quo to wash it away. A force wielding powers they'll never know. Pray they prevail, but if they don't, then don't turn beyond your thoughts and prayers. If they make it, there'll be no use here. Too late has come too soon. Now I'm just an exit. Other side of the truth of what we are. Vulnerable, yet the sum of all fears. Tolerable as long as nowhere near. No emergency room, this side of the
And you've often been described, as a musician's musician, that praise comes from, your peers rather than just marketing slogans. What does earning the respect, Ola, of fellow musicians mean to you after so many years on the road?
Well, I don't have any formal music training. As I hinted at earlier on, I was going to be a lawyer. That's what I was studying. I bumped into someone who encouraged me to, consider being they heard me singing and said, you really should consider being a singer, being a jazz singer. And that's how I fell into it. So every time a musician of some considerable weight, gives me the nod and says, wow, that's impressive. It astounds me.
Yeah.
Because what I hope that they don't then do is ask me to analyze what I just did, because I haven't got the foggiest clue. So yeah, it's a huge compliment. I never take it for granted. It's an amazing thing to have the commendation and acknowledgement of your peers is big.
Going through your biography, one can't help but realize the names that stare back at you when you kind of read through it. And I'm talking about the likes of Diane Reeves, Al Jarreau, Natalie Cole, Roy Hargrove, all the way to Roberta Flack, Patti LaBelle, Diana Krall. The list is endless, and these are all the people that you've shared stages with, Looking back, was there a particular conversation or performance, maybe, with one of those legends that quietly changed the way you feel about music?
Well, Al Jarreau was always a huge, huge influence. He was another one of these individuals who was as comfortable being a pop sensation as he was being a jazz sensation, working with the likes of Chick Corea and Miles Davis and Sanborn, and he was also just as comfortable being considered a soul musician. So I'd always admired him, the fact that he could scat, like nobody's business, but it was uniquely his. He wasn't using the traditional scat language, the normal sounds that we use. They were percussive, almost African, the way he would scat. All of that I really admired. So, being on stage with him and him, kind of, expressing to me that he thought I was quite young at the time, and I needed as much kind of approval from my seniors, as it were, and he gave it, and he gave it so generously. That was hugely encouraging, and it stays with me.
Oh, beautiful sentiments. The Sunday, of course. We are firmly within the jazz circuit, our third feature for the third hour. Our exploration half hour, I call it, where the music meets the afternoon. And the music that you've never heard before is also shared during this half hour. That's every Sunday between 12 and 12:30 here on the K-Jazz Show. And of course, today's edition, we sit with Ola Onabulé and get to listen to some of his music ahead of his appearance at the Stanabek Joy of Jazz 2026. Of course, there is that also, Ola, that conversation about reinvention, without losing oneself. And over the years, with countless, dozens of albums and countless international tours, Ola, and new releases still on the horizon. How do you keep growing, creatively, anyway, whilst remaining unmistakably you?
I think trying to being deliberate about exploring my authenticity and doing so fearlessly. So, going within and seeking what it is that I think is central to my beliefs, my truths, my experiences, or the things that I've heard that I think are both exceptional and unique, stories that I've heard that are exceptional and unique. So, for instance, my last album, Pointless, was based around the story of a young man who lost his life on unfortunate circumstances, with his partner sitting beside him and his 3-year-old daughter, on the seat behind him. And it was just a normal traffic stop, or what should have been a normal traffic stop. And it made me reflect on the number of times I'd been stopped by the police, and I felt that there was an extra layer to this whole thing. And so I explored that further. Feelings that I'd felt and let go by, I dragged them back and explored them and picked through them and wrote essentially a concept album of 15 songs for big band orchestra and for symphonic orchestra.
Incredible.
Which, we've managed to take around the world and play to people who also in their own way identify with our vulnerabilities and our prejudices and our ability to love and our ability to instill fear in one another. So as long as I keep reaching for that, then we're all connected.
Absolutely.
And if I say something and I say it with absolute selflessness and generosity, I know that someone in the room will latch onto it and it will mean something to them. So I keep trying to do that because it's worked so far.
The desperate ones who are desperado ones, set in disillusion, gentlemen. The answer now, not to anyone, soldiers of misfortune, who dare what comes. Give your sense of heartbeat a flick away deep to where the rage keeps out the sun. You see how they're all undone. My desperados all run, so storming your head again. How fun is true, there ain't no happiness in any gun. Sooner they know you're outdone. They drop you in the very deepest of holes. It drinks up your soul when you're alone with nowhere to go. You know, yeah, the laughter of the desperado one. See how.
The other reason why you're here this Sunday is because you're coming to South Africa, and of course our audiences have always embraced musicians who bring both excellence and sincerity, which you've just reflected now, in that one part of this conversation. But I've never asked you, what keeps you coming back here, and what has your relationship with South African listeners, meant to you over the years?
I've had an interesting bond with South Africa. When I first started making music, and I made a connection with a group of musicians who took me to their heart and more or less became my educators. They would hand me music to go and listen to, in lieu of a classical or a conservatoire type education. These guys looked after me. One of the first guys to do so was Becky Mseleku, who was the preeminent, quintessential, South African jazz pianist. He happened to be doing a stint in London for a couple of years, and it was masterful what he imparted to me. And I forgot to mention earlier on, he was also one of the people who helped me understand that there is an intersection between the music of the world and African music, that African music is essentially improvisational.
Yeah,
is one of the things he told me. So that formed a connection with South Africa in my mind. Later on, I got to work with Sibongile Khumalo, who also reinforced that notion. So I have great friends in South Africa, people who, within the first 5 minutes of us meeting, I felt like I'd known my entire life. So I seem to have an easy connection with the music, the people, the country, and every time I find myself there, it's deeply fulfilling. So yeah. As long as they'll have me, I'll keep coming back.
You're reflecting on some of the most incredible legends we've ever, known in the jazz space from the country. So really, you were in excitingly wonderful hands.
Absolutely. I felt tremendously honored to know those people.
Yeah, and you'll soon, be stepping onto that one of South Africa's, in fact, Africa's officially, we're Africa's most celebrated stages. The Standard Bank of Jazz. What can our audience, as we wrap up, expect from this year's performance, and what kind of musical journey are you hoping they'll leave with when those lights finally go up and you walk off the stage?
I hope I've conveyed a sense of how each one of us is all of us, that there's no real separate experience for us. There is in our imagination. What's happening to you is happening to you alone, and what's happening to that person's happening, and all of that kind of stuff. But it's imagined, and we are the future. Africa's the future. There's more of us. We're growing faster than anywhere else. We're making more art. We're, and so on and so forth. And so I want to collate a number of songs. I want to curate and collate a number of songs that tell that story. I have them. They're from various albums, but I want to bring them together in a show and actually weave a story that tells of how we were over there. It wasn't so good, and now it's going to get even better. And then we're going to be out there in the future.
And of course, we'll be there in the audience, taking it all in. Fantastic. And of course, reflecting on this conversation that you and I had. What would you like your legacy to look like?
I hope someone finds some answers to whatever is perplexing them back then. I hope, and by that I mean I hope that I've written something that is a universal truth, that is cool for then, cool for now, and cool for the future. Yeah. So that's my hope, really.
Well, certainly is going to resonate with the listeners of the K-Jazz Show. And of course, it has been a privilege, to be with you, sharing not only your remarkable musical journey, Ola, but the heart, the purpose, and the humanity, that continues to shape your work. And it is through these conversations that remind us that great jazz isn't simply about extraordinary musicianship. It's about telling our shared human story with honesty, courage, and elegance. Of course, Johannesburg, you've just had a glimpse of what awaits you this September. And if you've never experienced Ola live, this is your invitation. And of course, if you already have, then you know exactly why this performance is worth returning for. It is the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz 2026, which promises to be another unforgettable celebration of world-class music, bold collaborations, and the finest voices in contemporary jazz. Of course, do book your tickets early. Gather the people you love and come be part of the music, the memories, and the magic. And we will see you at Johannesburg's favorite jazz festival. And of course, to you, Ola, thank you so much for joining us on the K-Jazz Show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
It is our pleasure. And of course, we wish you an unforgettable stay once again in Johannesburg, an inspiring performance at the Joy of Jazz Festival. And of course, many more beautiful chapters, still to be written. And thank you so much for joining us on the K-Jazz Show.
Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely conversation.
Oh, indeed, it was. Of course, his name is Ola Onabulé, and he was on the K-Jazz Show.